У мене трясуться руки, тому що я щойно побачила, як летить ракета. І я почула це.
Some terrifying footage you'll see there from latest airstrikes that have been happening in Ukraine over the last 24 hours that have been going down. It's killed several people and injured many more. There was a young woman there apparently going live, videoing something that she was doing in a normal day-to-day walk. And airstrikes, as you saw, exploded all around her. This is in Kyiv. And so she narrowly missed death there. There was also another video of more airstrikes happening in Dnipro, and there was dash cam footage from someone that was driving around there along with other drivers. And it doesn't get more terrifying than seeing something like this. Let's watch more of what happened. Again, devastating footage there and more explosions happening. And I'm sure you guys are hearing about this. This is a bit of retaliation. But one more piece about this, because the Kyiv mayor, Vitaly Klitschko, you guys, many people know, he also described some of the damage that has been happening and also just how devastating this is on normal civilians going back to daily lives. As it was pointed out, not much of this has been going on recently. Earlier on in this conflict, there was some civilian targeting at this degree, but now people were beginning to feel like they could step out. It was rush hour time in the morning when all this happened. So here's Klitschko talking about how bad this was.
Велика терористична атака російських варварів на столицю та обласні центри України. У Києві ми бачимо зранку влучання в кількох районах. Зокрема, в центрі нашого міста також агресор вдарив по кількох об'єктах критичної інфраструктури. За даними на цей час від ракетних ударів в нашому місті загинули 5 людей. 51 постраждали. Зараз 42 людини знаходяться в закладах міста, медзакладах. Усі міські служби працюють в режимі надзвичайної ситуації, оперативно реагують і долають наслідки атаки. Зараз ми бачимо, служби комунальні працює, загроза триває, тому прошу всіх не нехтувати безпекою і сигналами повітряної тривоги під час.
Of course, Vladimir Putin was taking responsibility for this, and he said he had a reason for it. Let's look at that, because explosions that we saw there rocked several cities across Ukraine in the most extensive attack on the country since the early days of Russia's invasion back in February. The attacks came only hours after Russia then blamed Ukraine for a weekend explosion that partially damaged a strategic bridge that connects Russian-occupied Crimea to mainland Russia. So after that bridge explosion that he was talking about there, Putin also promised this harsh response. I guess this is what he was talking about, because Ukrainian emergency services report that several people are dead across the country, including at least 5 people, as we also saw Klitschko saying there, in the capital city of Kyiv, which hasn't been hit since June. It's also the closest strike to the center of the city since the war began, coming just over 1,000 yards from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's office. Seems the pressure is building and building, especially the way the international folks are talking about how Putin's losing and there's people that are surrendering and all these reports that are very embarrassing. Let's keep it real. And so many times, I guess this is the response that he feels he has to come back with. Also, it doesn't seem like it's an accident. Let's keep it real. Because as we mentioned, this hadn't hit Kyiv since June, but then the way these civilians are being hit directly and multiple killed, folks killed in devastating fashion, this is kind of the plan. Because these explosions rocked several civilian areas of Dnipro, a major southern city. One site hit was a bus stop nestled between high-rise apartment buildings, and a missile slammed just a few feet in front of a bus on its morning route to pick up commuters, destroying the bus and blowing out the windows in nearby apartments. Someone else said this happened at rush hour as lots of public transport was operating in the city. That's what Ihor Matkoltsev I believe, the head of the Department of Transport for the Dnipro City Council said as he stood by the wreckage. He also added the bus driver and 4 passengers had been taken to the hospital with some serious injuries. Now, other countries are responding, talking about how horrific this is, as you could imagine. But this is where I'm at maybe a dead end here, Jessica. Now what? I mean, I'm not a foreign policy expert. I'm sure some of them probably have things that they're saying they believe should happen, but I haven't seen much of a direct, I guess, conclusive response that can do something as positive.
Yeah, I'm definitely a big advocate for us using the international bodies that have been put in place to handle situations like this. Killing civilians is considered a war crime under international law. And we know that the United Nations kind of operates in a fashion of the nations with the biggest militaries and the most money to contribute are usually the ones that get to decide the work of the United Nations. So that's a huge problem when we have situations like this that involve huge world powers, because the governing body that's set up to resolve conflicts like this really is stuck in a stalemate. And the United States has not put themselves in a good position to criticize nations like Russia for committing war crimes by killing civilians, especially with drone strikes and airstrikes, because that's something the United States has done in the Middle East as recently as August 15th. We killed between 6 and 10 civilians in Syria near the border to Iran. And so, as we say, we're the moral leader of the world. Not really. We're kind of throwing stones in a glass house if our government starts criticizing what Russia's doing here, which leaves a void in leadership in the world for solving international conflicts. And so if we were to resolve a situation like this, it would have to be an agreement directly with Russia and the United States. And I think the United Nations could be the body to organize that, but it would have to be an agreement like, hey, there's a fascist uprising in Ukraine. That's what Russia claims to be worried about. If that is true, some resolution could be to address that, and then the United States would stop, drone striking civilians as well. Some agreement like that, and stop giving military aid to Ukraine. There are solutions here, but because of what our world powers have done, it's not really a viable solution to use these international bodies that are set up to do that.